Hi everyone, and welcome to this plant tutorial bite for option not included. As always, make sure to check out the plants tutorial bite if you haven't already for an overview of the plant mechanics. In this plant tutorial bite, we're talking about Ovagro plants, a unique crawling vine plant in the Prehistoric Planet Pack DLC. On the map, Ovagro plants live in the garden biome, which is the starting biome in the Prehistoric Planet Pack, meaning you'll have access to these plants very early on in these starts. Now, what makes Ovagro plants so far unique is that they are made of the central Ovagro Node, which then grows Ovagro vines. The node is the main body of the plant and is immediately mature when planted and is 2 tiles high. But the cool thing with this plant is that once the node is planted, if the conditions are met, then vines start growing on either side of the node. These can go up to 12 tiles on either side of the node, and each one produces an Ovagro fig with its own growth cycle, which is the output of this plant. The vines can obviously go horizontally on the floors, but can also climb on walls or ceilings, but they do need to be supported by a tile. This can lead to a wide range of designs for farming them. And Ovagro plants are grown from Ovagro Node seeds, which can be gotten by digging up a growing plant or collected on harvest with the usual drop chance. Looking at their details then, the Ovagro plants produce Ovagro Figs, as I mentioned, but their output rate depends on how many vines the plant has. In the worst case, if for some reason the node had no space to grow any vines, the plant would literally make no output. And then if you have all 24 vines growing, you can get the maximum output of 7,800 kilocalories of Ovagro fig per full harvest, or 325 kilocalories per vine. As they are found in the starting garden biome, their growing conditions are within dupe comfort levels. They grow in oxygen, polluted oxygen or carbon dioxide, and have a livable temperature range of between 25 and 45 degrees Celsius, which is on the slightly hotter side, which garden biomes spawn in as. And they have a positive decor of plus 15 at a 2-tile range. When grown domestically, they need 90 kilograms per cycle of water. Of course, this is easily found when starting out, but beware that even a few of these plants can quickly drain your water supply, so be careful when growing these earlier in the game. Once you have a sustainable water supply, these can then be grown very easily in a hydroponic tile. Next on to the uses then, when harvested we get Ovagro figs. These are directly edible but have a terrible food quality of 0. If eaten this way, each domestic plant with 24 vines makes enough food for 2.6 dupes, or a wild one supports 0.65 dupes. But they can be used in the recipe for mixed berry pie in the Spaced Out DLC as a substitute for gristleberry or pike apple skewers from the Frosty Planet Pack DLC. Here you'll have to combine them with sleet wheat grain or megafrond grain from another Prehistoric Planet Pack DLC plant and grub fruit. Using Ovagro figs to make mixed berry pie, one domestic plant makes enough for 5.5 dupes, or for 1.4 dupes if wild. It's a bit difficult to compare Ovagro and pike apple here because pike apple bushes use phosphorite and not water as a fertilizer, but we can compare Ovagro and gristleberry because both of these plants use water. In terms of numbers, one Ovagro plant with 24 vines makes almost 8 times as much mixed berry pie ingredient compared to each bristle blossom plant, so you would need a lot more bristle blossom plants for the same amount of food. And perhaps surprisingly, Ovagro figs are more water efficient too, with bristle blossoms needing an extra 73% of the water for the same amount of mixed berry pie ingredient compared to Ovagro plants, and also don't need the extra step of grilling bristleberry into gristleberry in the electric grill. So Ovagro figs, assuming you can grow all the vines, are better in every way than bristle blossoms for late game mixed berry pie production. Quickly on the topic of water, of course it is found in the starting biomes, and later on is easily made renewably from any of the types of water geyser. Other than being eaten by dupes, Ovagro figs can be eaten by 2 critters as well, these being hatches and sage hatches, and lumbs and blumlums. Note that both of these critter species eat the harvested figs and not the plant growth, so there is no need to put the plants and critters together, except this does have a harvesting advantage with lumbs. With hatches, splitting the farm and ranch makes sense, and I would recommend keeping the typical hatch ranch design as I covered in the hatch critter tutorial bite. Then the Ovagro figs can be harvested and brought in, either with dupes or using automation. For numbers here, one domestic Ovagro plant with 24 vines makes enough figs for 3.7 hatches or sage hatches. This amount of hatches on this diet would excrete about 6 kg per cycle of coal, and sage hatches about 8 kg per cycle. So because this is so small, you'd really be getting the meat out as the main output. If using wild overgrow plants, then each plant can support 0.9 hatches, so almost enough to fully feed one hatch. Lumb ranch designs are really another topic, and I will go into more detail on these in their own critter tutorial bite. In general though, combining the lumbs and overgrow plants together is not a bad idea, because the lumbs can stomp and harvest plants that are ready. Because overgrow plants have up to 24 vines each, that comes to a lot of harvesting, so this is a convenient pairing. Just to quickly cover the numbers, one domestic overgrow plant can support 2 lumbs or blumlums, and a wild one half a lumb, so you need 2 wild plants per critter. Then each lumb makes 200 kg per cycle of peat, or each blumlum 132 kg per cycle of algae, so this is a very powerful combo. Lastly, let's look at growing them, and there are lots of different designs that can be made. Outside of lumb ranches, we can really choose whatever shape of farm we like, as long as there are enough tiles or doors for the vines to grow on. Because of geometry, long thin designs are more space efficient than square or round designs. When it comes to horizontal versus vertical designs have the advantage of dropping the figs down, meaning you can use fewer auto sweepers to collect them. But if you want dupes to harvest this design, then ladders will be needed. As you generally want domestic plants to be dupe harvested, a design like this works well, and hydroponic tiles are the best choice as they can supply the water from a pump. Doing a wild farm and letting the figs fall after 4 cycles is also possible. In this case, the plants can be spaced closer together without ladders, and can be pip planted as shown because the minimum spacing is already big enough for pips. For more information on how to use pips to plant, see the wild farming and pip planting tutorial bite. Plus, by making a farm very vertical, you can farm lots of plants with just a few auto sweepers for lots of free overgrow figs. In my opinion, this design has the most advantages, but many others will also work. And so that's all I have to cover about overgrow plants in the Prehistoric Planet Pack for Oxygen Not Included. I hope this lets you use these cool vine growing plants in your bases, and thanks for watching.